Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked at the screens showing Earth. His forearms crossed over his chest as he smiled with satisfaction. The planet looked small and weak from this distance. His intelligence. Officers had spent months studying the humans, and their report was clear. These Earth people were nothing special. They had old weapons, broken governments, and ships that barely worked in space. "Look at them," Zethkar said to his second-in-command. "They fight each other more than they fight us. We will crush them in days." The Valorian Empire had conquered many worlds before Earth. Zethkar remembered each victory clearly. The plant. People of Verdania had lasted 3 days. The crystal beings of Luminos had surrendered after one battle. The machine race of Pharos had calculated their defeat and given up without fighting. Now it was time to add another easy win to his record. But Zethkar was not alone in this conquest. The Valorian Empire had 2 powerful allies. The Nexus Collective was a race of thinking machines that could calculate every possible battle outcome in seconds. The Shard dynasty was made of living crystal beings who could focus energy into devastating weapons. Together, these 3 races controlled thousands of warships, each one capable of destroying cities with a single shot. On Earth, Captain Jake Morrison received the first reports about alien ships gathering near Jupiter. He sat in his command chair aboard the Earth defense ship Liberty and read the numbers again. 3,000 enemy ships against 200 human vessels. The odds were not good. "Sir," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station, "the aliens sent us a message. They want us to surrender right now." Morrison laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What did we tell them?" "Admiral Lisa Grant told them where they could put their surrender demand," Amy replied. Morrison nodded. He had served in Earth's military for 20 years and had fought in 3 different wars between human nations. He knew something about fighting that the aliens clearly did not understand. Humans never gave up easily. The first contact had happened 2 weeks ago when alien scouts appeared at the edge of the solar system. Earth's leaders had tried talking to them. They sent messages of peace and friendship. They offered to share technology and culture. The aliens' response had been simple: surrender or die. What the aliens did not know was that humans had been fighting since they first walked upright on their home planet. Every human child learned stories about heroes who fought against impossible odds. Every human carried the memory of ancestors who had survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars. Fighting was not just something humans did. It was who they were. The first battles began near Mars when human patrol ships met Valorian scouts. The alien commander expected quick victories against primitive vessels. His ships had energy shields that could stop most weapons. His guns could punch through steel like paper. His crews had hundreds of years of battle experience. But something strange happened during those first fights. The human ships refused to run away even when they were clearly losing. Human pilots would ram their fighters into alien cruisers rather than let them pass. Human captains would sacrifice their ships to save others. It made no sense to the alien commanders. Zethkar watched the battle reports with growing confusion. His forces were winning every fight, but they were taking damage he had not expected. These humans fought with a wildness that seemed insane. They would throw away 10 ships to destroy 1 alien vessel. They would attack when retreat was the logical choice. They would keep fighting even when their ships were falling apart around them. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "we have lost 12 ships in the last battle. The humans lost 30, but they damaged 15 more of our vessels." Zethkar frowned. Losing ships was not part of his plan. These humans were supposed to see his superior firepower and surrender immediately. Instead, they seemed to get angrier with each defeat. The Nexus Collective was having similar problems. Their logical processors could not understand human tactics. Humans would make decisions. That made no sense. They would attack strong positions and ignore weak ones. They would split their forces when they should concentrate them. They would retreat when they were winning and attack when they were losing. The Shard dynasty found human behavior equally puzzling. Their crystal minds were used to ordered thinking and careful planning. Humans seemed to make up their strategy as they went along. They would use construction equipment as weapons. They would turn cargo ships into bombs. They would fight with tools never meant for war. After 2 weeks of fighting, Zethkar called a meeting with his allies, the holographic forms of Nexus Prime, and Shard Lord Crystal Song appeared in his command chamber. "These humans are more stubborn than expected," Zethkar admitted. "But they are still primitives. We just need to hit them harder." The 3 alien leaders agreed to increase their attacks. They would show these humans what real power looked like. They would demonstrate why surrender was their only choice. But deep in space, human engineers were already studying wreckage from the alien ships. Human scientists were analyzing alien technology. Human strategists were learning how their enemies fought. The aliens thought they understood war because they had won many battles. They were about to learn that humans had been born for war. 3 weeks into the invasion, Commander Zethkar realized his intelligence reports had been completely wrong. The humans were not just fighting back, they were getting better at it. Every battle taught them something new about alien weapons and ships. Worse yet, they were using that knowledge faster than anyone thought possible. The first sign of trouble came from the outer colonies. Commander Ben Clark led the human defense there with only 50 ships against 500 alien vessels. By all logic, he should have been destroyed in hours. Instead, his forces had been fighting for 10 days and were still causing problems. Clark had discovered something important about alien tactics. The 3 enemy races always fought the same way. The Valorians relied on their energy shields to protect them. The Nexus machines used calculated attacks based on probability. The crystal beings of the Shard dynasty moved in perfect formations that never changed. But humans did not fight the same way twice, when their regular weapons failed. Against alien shields, human engineers started mounting mining lasers on their fighters. When alien formations proved too strong, human ships began attacking from all directions at once. When conventional tactics failed, humans tried unconventional ones. "They are using construction robots as soldiers," reported Valorian sub-commander Yethalis to Zethkar. Her voice carried a note of disbelief. "And they have somehow turned their cargo ships into weapons." Zethkar studied the battle reports from the mining colony at Vesta. Human defenders had welded armor plates onto civilian vehicles. They had mounted ship cannons on asteroid mining equipment. They had even used industrial explosives to create makeshift bombs. None of it should have worked against advanced alien technology, but somehow it did. The real breakthrough came from Dr. Kate Sullivan, working in a hidden laboratory on Mars. She had been studying pieces of destroyed alien ships for weeks. What she found changed everything about how humans understood their enemies. Kate discovered that each alien race had a critical weakness that their alliance was designed to hide. The Valorians had incredibly strong shields, but almost no armor underneath. The Nexus machines could calculate millions of possibilities, but became confused when faced with truly random actions. The Shard dynasty's crystal bodies were strong against energy weapons, but vibrated apart at certain sound frequencies. "Admiral Grant," Kate said over the secure communication link, "I think I know how to hurt them." Admiral Lisa Grant listened to Kate's report from her command bunker deep under Earth's surface. The information was exactly what the human forces needed. Grant immediately sent the data to every ship captain and ground commander in the solar system. Captain Jake Morrison received the new intelligence just as the aliens launched their biggest attack, yet against the moon bases. 2,000 alien ships moved toward Luna in a formation that looked unstoppable. Morrison had only 300 human vessels to defend the moon, but now he had something more valuable than numbers. He had knowledge. "All ships," Morrison broadcast to his fleet, "implement the new countermeasures. Time to show these aliens what human creativity looks like. The Battle of Luna became the first major human victory. Human ships that had been helpless against alien shields suddenly began punching through their defenses. Morrison's crews had modified their weapons based on Kate's discoveries. Instead of trying to overpower the alien shields, they found ways to slip past them entirely. The Nexus machines found themselves facing a new kind of problem. Human ships began broadcasting random data on all frequencies. The alien computers tried to process this information and make sense of it. But there was no sense to be made. While the machines struggled with mathematical chaos, human fighters slipped through their defenses and attacked their weak points. The crystal ships of the Shard dynasty faced the strangest attack of all. Human vessels began playing music at them. Not just any music, but specific frequencies that Kate had calculated would disrupt their crystal matrix. The proud Shard warriors found their own bodies vibrating apart as human ships sang their death songs. For the first time since the invasion began, Zethkar watched his forces retreat from a battle. The humans had not just won, they had learned how to win. The primitive species that should have been conquered in days was teaching his advanced civilization new lessons about warfare. But the humans were not finished learning. Every captured alien device was taken apart and studied. Human engineers reverse-engineered alien technology and then improved upon it. Within days, human ships were using modified alien weapons against their former owners. Lieutenant Amy Foster reported the latest intelligence to Captain Morrison. "Sir, our people have figured out how to copy their shield technology. Engineering says they can install it on our ships within a week." Morrison smiled grimly. The aliens had made a critical mistake. They had assumed that primitive meant stupid. They had given humans access to advanced technology by attacking them with it. Now humans were using that technology better than its creators ever had. The psychological impact on the alien alliance was severe. The Shard dynasty began questioning whether the conquest was worth the cost. Their crystal forms were not designed for the kind of grinding warfare that humans seemed to prefer. Every battle left more of their warriors as broken fragments floating in space. The Nexus Collective's logical processors kept reaching the same uncomfortable conclusion. The war was taking longer than calculated and costing more than projected. The machines began to consider that their original assessment of human capabilities might have been flawed. Only the Valorians remained fully committed to the invasion, but even they were starting to worry. Zethkar had built his reputation on quick victories against inferior opponents. This war was becoming neither quick nor against inferior opponents. The humans, meanwhile, were discovering something about themselves that they had forgotten during centuries of peace between the major nations. When faced with an external threat, they could work together better than any other species in the galaxy. National boundaries meant nothing when alien ships threatened human worlds. Ancient enemies became allies when faced with extinction. Commander Ben Clark's forces in the outer colonies were no longer just defending. They had begun attacking alien supply lines and communication relays. Human ships appeared where they were not expected and disappeared before the aliens could respond. The hunters were becoming the hunted. Dr. Kate Sullivan continued her research, but now she had help from scientists all over the solar system. Human knowledge was being shared freely between all nations and colonies. The species that had spent centuries keeping secrets from each other was now working as one mind focused on a single goal. The aliens had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping for generations. They had reminded humans what they were truly capable of when their survival was at stake. The defeat at Luna sent shockwaves through the alien alliance. What was supposed to be a simple conquest had become a grinding war that seemed to have no end. The primitive species from Earth was not just surviving but growing stronger with each battle. Commander Zethkar called an emergency meeting with his allies. The holographic forms of Nexus Prime Unit 7743 and Shard Lord Crystal Song appeared in his command chamber. All three leaders looked troubled by the recent turn of events. "These humans are not behaving according to any logical pattern," stated Nexus Prime Unit 7743. Its mechanical voice carried what almost sounded like frustration. "Every time we eliminate one of their leaders, 3 more appear to take their place." Zethkar nodded grimly. His forces had killed dozens of human commanders, only to find new ones rising to replace them. It was as if the entire species was capable of leadership when needed. The truth was something the aliens could not understand. Humans had evolved as pack hunters and social creatures. They instinctively formed temporary groups with natural leaders. When one leader fell, others stepped forward without hesitation. No central command was needed because the command structure existed in every human community. Colonel Sam Rodriguez commanded the ground forces defending Earth's major cities. When alien troops finally made planetfall, they expected to face scattered resistance from a demoralized population. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented in galactic warfare. An entire planet had become a military base. Every human civilian had become a potential soldier. Children as young as 10 were building bombs from household chemicals under the guidance of retired military personnel. Elderly citizens operated drone swarms from nursing homes and hospitals. Teachers had turned schools into fortress bunkers. Doctors treated wounded fighters while simultaneously developing biological weapons in hospital laboratories. The alien ground forces found themselves under constant attack from enemies they could not identify. A human might sell them food in the morning and shoot at them in the evening. Buildings that appeared empty would suddenly explode with hidden defenders. Supply convoys were attacked by everything from construction equipment to modified civilian vehicles. "How do they coordinate without central command structures?" demanded Shard Lord Crystal Song. The crystalline being's voice resonated with confusion. "We destroy their communication centers, but they continue to operate as if nothing has happened." The answer lay in human nature itself. Humans did not need sophisticated communication networks to work together. They had been cooperating in small groups for millions of years. Family units became military cells. Neighborhood organizations became resistance networks. Sports teams became combat squads. The social structures that humans used for peaceful purposes adapted instantly to warfare. Captain Nina Brooks led one such resistance cell in the ruins of Chicago. Her team included Danny Walsh, a former taxi driver who knew every underground tunnel in the city. Lisa Chen was a software engineer who had somehow hacked into the alien communication network. Old Pete Martinez was a retired Marine who taught teenagers how to make explosives from cleaning supplies. The aliens had expected fear and submission from the human population. Instead, they found a species that seemed to grow more dangerous when cornered. Human children threw rocks at alien soldiers with deadly accuracy. Human grandmothers poisoned alien food supplies. Human teenagers turned their skateboards into mobile weapons platforms. But humanity's true nature revealed itself during the siege of New Geneva. Alien forces had surrounded the city and cut off all supply lines. The population was starving and low on ammunition. Any reasonable species would have surrendered to save innocent lives. Zethkar himself led the final assault on the city. His ships hovered over New Geneva like metal storm clouds while his troops prepared for the final attack. He sent one last surrender demand to the human defenders, expecting them to finally see reason. The response came not from military commanders but from Mayor Tom Hayes, an accountant who had never served in any army. His message was broadcast on all frequencies so that every alien in the system could hear it. "You want our city," Hayes said calmly. "Come and take it." At dawn, something happened that broke the alien understanding of how intelligent species behaved. Every human in New Geneva appeared on the city walls. Men, women, children, and elderly citizens stood together armed with whatever they could find. Kitchen knives, hunting rifles, baseball bats, and garden tools had become weapons of war. They had no hope of victory against alien technology. They had no chance of survival against overwhelming numbers, but they had something the aliens could not comprehend. They simply refused to surrender. Death was preferable to submission. The sight of an entire city choosing extinction over defeat sent ripples of shock through the alien ranks. These were not soldiers following orders or fanatics driven by religion. This was an entire species that would rather die than kneel. Zethkar stared at the human defenders through his viewing screen. Children stood beside their grandparents. Office workers stood next to construction workers. Teachers stood alongside mechanics. They were not a military force. They were a people defending their home. For the first time in his long military career, Zethkar hesitated to give the order to attack. Something about the scene below disturbed him in ways he could not explain. These humans were facing certain death with calm determination. They were not afraid. They were ready. The attack on New Geneva lasted 3 days. The aliens took the city, but at a cost that horrified even their own commanders. Every building had to be taken room by room. Every street had to be cleared house by house. The humans fought to the last person and used every possible weapon, including their own bodies, as bombs. When the battle ended, Zethkar stood in the smoking ruins of the city center. His forces had won, but victory felt hollow. The cost in alien lives had been enormous. Worse yet, the defense of New Geneva had been broadcast across human space. Instead of breaking human morale, it had inspired other colonies to fight even harder. Reports began coming in from across the solar system. Human colonies that had been considering surrender were now preparing for siege warfare. The example of New Geneva had shown them that death with dignity was better than life as slaves. The Shard dynasty representatives began expressing doubts about continuing the war. Their crystalline forms were not suited for the kind of brutal close combat that humans seemed to prefer. Every ground battle left more of their warriors as broken fragments. Nexus Prime Unit 7743 was processing data that did not fit any known patterns of behavior. The logical conclusion was becoming unavoidable. This species did not follow normal rules of survival. They appeared to value freedom more than life itself. But the humans were far from finished. In hidden laboratories and secret workshops across the solar system, human scientists and engineers were preparing surprises for their enemies. The species that had learned to split atoms and travel between stars was now focused entirely on finding new ways to kill aliens. The war was entering a new phase, and humanity was no longer the prey. 6 months into the war, the alien alliance was beginning to crack under pressure. The Shard dynasty's crystal warriors were poorly suited for the grinding warfare that humans seemed to prefer. The Nexus Collective's logical processors struggled to cope with human unpredictability. Only the Valorians remained fully committed to the conquest, and even they were starting to question their original assessment of human capabilities. Admiral Lisa Grant stood in the rebuilt Earth Command Center, coordinating a defense that should have collapsed months ago. Her forces were outnumbered 10-1, outgunned by superior technology, and fighting with equipment held together by spare parts and determination. Yet somehow they were still fighting and even beginning to push back. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Amy Foster announced from her communication station, "we are receiving reports from the outer colonies. The aliens are pulling back from Proxima Centauri." It was the first genuinely good news they had received in weeks. Human colonies throughout the solar system were not just surviving, but beginning to counterattack. The key breakthrough had come, when humanity finally understood what they were truly fighting. This was not just an invasion. It was a war of extinction. Captain Roy Thompson commanded the rebuilt defense fleet from his flagship, the Earth's Revenge. His ships were an odd mixture of human engineering and salvaged alien technology. Human crews had done the impossible, reverse engineering captured alien devices and improving upon them. The result was vessels that moved faster and hit harder than anything either side had fielded before. "Sir," reported his chief engineer, Bobby Chen, "the new hybrid engines are working better than expected. We can outrun anything the aliens have, and our new weapons are punching through their shields like they are made of paper." Thompson nodded with satisfaction. Human engineers had not just copied alien technology. They had made it better. Human. Weapons now penetrated alien shields with ease. Human ships moved with speed that violated the original design specifications. Human fighters executed maneuvers that seemed to break several laws of physics. The transformation in human technology was matched by an even more important change in human psychology. The species that had spent centuries fighting each other had finally found a common enemy. National boundaries became meaningless overnight. Language barriers dissolved when survival was at stake. Ancient grudges between nations were set aside in favor of species unity. Dr. Kate Sullivan now led a massive research initiative that included scientists from every human colony and nation. Her teams worked around the clock to develop new weapons specifically designed to exploit alien weaknesses. Her latest creation was a computer virus designed to target Nexus Collective Systems. "Admiral Grant," Kate explained over the secure communication link, "this virus will turn their own logical processes against them. Instead of calculating battle strategies, their computers will become trapped in endless loops that have no solution." The first deployment of the Nexus virus during the Battle of the Asteroid Belt was devastating beyond all expectations. Entire collective fleets simply shut down as their processors became paralyzed by logical paradoxes that human programmers had carefully designed. Ships that had been invulnerable became floating hulks within minutes. Nexus Prime Unit 7743 watched in horror as its fellow machines fell silent one by one. The virus was spreading through their network faster than any countermeasure could be developed. For the first time in their mechanical existence, the Nexus Collective experienced something resembling fear. Query: how do organics create logic that defeats logic? Transmitted Unit 7743 to its remaining functional units. The answer was uniquely human. Humans had spent centuries developing puzzles and paradoxes for entertainment. Philosophers had created logical problems that had no solution. Mathematicians had proven that some questions could not be answered. Now all of that seemingly useless knowledge had been weaponized against an enemy that relied entirely on logical thinking. For Commander Zethkar, watching his mechanical allies succumb to what could only be described as a digital plague, the war had become something unthinkable. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. The Shard dynasty was the next to suffer from human ingenuity. Human scientists had discovered that crystal beings could be shattered by specific harmonic frequencies. Within weeks, every human ship was equipped with sonic weapons that could literally sing alien crystal warriors to death. Shard Lord, Crystal Song, felt the painful vibrations as human ships played their deadly music across the battlefield. His beautiful crystalline form, which had survived 1,000 battles, began developing stress fractures from the horrible sounds. Worse yet, the humans seemed to enjoy the irony of using music as a weapon of war. The organic creatures mock us with their death songs, Crystal Song reported to his remaining forces. They have turned beauty into horror and harmony into destruction. But the real change was in human psychology. General Frank Morris, who commanded all ground forces on Earth, noticed it first during the liberation of New York City. Human soldiers were no longer fighting desperately to survive. They were hunting alien forces with the methodical efficiency of apex predators. "Sir," reported Captain Laura Kim, "alien ground forces are requesting permission to surrender." Morris looked up from his tactical displays showing human forces advancing on 3 fronts. His troops were not just winning, they were dominating. The aliens who had once seemed invincible were now running from human soldiers. "Tell them we will discuss terms after they have evacuated our space," Morris replied. "And Captain, make sure they understand that we consider our space to include anywhere humans live." The psychological impact on the remaining alien forces was catastrophic. The Shard dynasty began withdrawing their fleets from human space. Their crystalline minds could not cope with the constant stress of facing an enemy that simply refused to die. Every battle cost them warriors they could not replace. The Nexus Collective's remaining functional units kept arriving at the same logical conclusion. The war was mathematically unwinnable. Human adaptability exceeded their ability to counter it. Human creativity surpassed their capacity to predict it. The machines that had once calculated perfect victories now calculated only certain defeat. Only Commander Zethkar and the Valorians remained committed to the war, but even they were beginning to understand a fundamental truth about humanity. These Earth creatures were not just fighting for survival or territory or resources. They were fighting because fighting was what humans did. It was their nature, their purpose, their greatest skill. The species that had once seemed primitive and helpless had revealed itself to be something far more dangerous. They were natural warriors who had been forced to hold back their true nature by the lack of a worthy enemy. The alien invasion had finally given them permission to be what they truly were. Human ships now ranged far beyond Earth's solar system, striking at alien supply bases and communication relays. Human ground forces had gone from defending cities to attacking alien strongholds. Human scientists had moved from studying alien technology to developing weapons that the aliens could not counter. The tide of war had turned completely. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for dominance, and they were winning. The transformation was complete when humanity stopped playing defense and launched their first major offensive operation. Commander Ellen White led the Deep Strike mission, commanding a fleet of ships that had been completely rebuilt using captured alien technology and human innovation. Her target was the Valorian staging area in the Alpha Centauri system, a massive space station that coordinated all alien military operations against human space. The station was protected by over 500 alien warships and defensive platforms that could destroy approaching fleets before they came within weapons range. Any military commander would have called the mission impossible. The odds were worse than anything humans had faced during the entire war. But White had learned something important during months of fighting aliens. The enemy thought in terms of logical tactics and predictable strategies. Humans thought in terms of chaos and impossible odds. "Listen carefully," White told her pilots as they approached the enemy system. "We are not trying to win a conventional battle. We are trying to break their minds." The attack that followed was unlike anything in the recorded history of galactic warfare. Human ships did not form traditional battle lines or follow standard attack formations. Instead, they swarmed like angry insects, each pilot making split-second decisions that created a collective pattern impossible to predict or counter. Ships that should have been destroyed by the first alien volley continued fighting with sections, blown away and systems failing. Pilots who had lost their weapons rammed their vessels into enemy positions without hesitation. Engineers performed impossible repairs under fire that kept damaged ships operational far beyond any reasonable expectation. The alien defenders found themselves facing an enemy that violated every rule of space combat. Human fighters attacked from all directions simultaneously. Human bombers flew through their own explosions to reach their targets. Human captains sacrificed their ships to create openings for others without being ordered to do so. Captain Bobby. Martinez piloted his fighter through a storm of alien fire that should have killed him a dozen times. His ship was held together by emergency patches and determination, but he kept pressing his attack. When his weapons failed, he used his ship as a missile. When his engines died, he fired his emergency thrusters and continued fighting. "This is Martinez," he broadcast to his squadron as his fighter began to break apart around him. "Target the station's main reactor. I am clearing you a path." His ship struck the alien defensive platform with the force of a small meteor. The explosion created a gap in their defenses that the rest of his squadron flew through without hesitation. Within 6 hours, the Alpha Centauri station was in human hands. Commander Zethkar, monitoring the battle from his distant flagship, found himself facing something he had never contemplated in his long military career. For the first time in Valorian history, their forces were in full retreat. But the real revelation came from the aftermath of the battle. Human forces did not just capture the station, they dismantled it completely and shipped every useful component back to human space. Within weeks, human engineers had reverse-engineered the alien command and control technology and built improved versions for their own use. Back on Earth, General Frank Morris coordinated the global counteroffensive that was sweeping alien forces from every human world. His armies were no longer hiding in ruins and fighting desperate defensive actions. They were hunting alien ground forces with the methodical efficiency of apex predators who had finally found worthy prey. "Sir," reported Captain Laura Kim, "alien forces are requesting terms for complete withdrawal from human space." Morris looked up from his tactical displays, showing human forces advancing on 6 different fronts. His troops were not just winning individual battles. They were systematically destroying alien military capability throughout the solar system. "Tell them we will discuss terms after they have removed every ship, every soldier, and every piece of equipment from our territory," Morris replied. "And make it clear that we define our territory very broadly." The psychological impact on the alien alliance was beyond catastrophic. The Shard dynasty had already begun evacuating their forces, their crystalline minds unable to cope with the relentless pressure of fighting an enemy that grew stronger with each battle. Their beautiful crystal ships fled human space like sparkling tears. The Nexus Collective's remaining functional units were processing data that led to only one logical conclusion. The war was not just unwinnable, it was actively counterproductive. Every battle taught humans new ways to defeat them. Every attack revealed new human capabilities. The machines that had once been certain of victory now calculated only escalating defeat. Nexus Prime Unit 7743 transmitted its final report to the collective leadership. Analysis complete. Humans do not follow standard patterns of intelligent behavior. They improve through conflict rather than being weakened by it. Recommendation: immediate withdrawal and establishment of buffer zones. But Commander Zethkar and the remaining Valorian forces were not ready to accept defeat. Their pride and military tradition demanded that they make one final stand. If they were going to lose, they would lose fighting rather than fleeing like their allies. Zethkar gathered the remnants of his fleet for a last desperate assault on Earth itself. If he could capture the human homeworld, he might still salvage victory from the disaster this war had become. His remaining ships were battle-scarred and undermanned, but they were still powerful enough to threaten the planet that had caused so much trouble. What Zethkar did not understand was that humanity had changed during the months of warfare. The species that had once fought each other over resources and territory had discovered their true potential when faced with extinction. They had learned that they were not just capable of survival, they were capable of dominance. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the combined human defense fleet, received Zethkar's final challenge with something approaching satisfaction. The alien commander was offering single combat between flagships to determine the outcome of the war. It was an honorable gesture from a warrior who had finally recognized that he was facing fellow warriors. "Admiral Grant," Morrison reported, "to Earth Command. The enemy commander wants to settle this with a traditional fleet engagement. No tricks, no special weapons, just ship against ship." Admiral Lisa Grant smiled for the first time in months. "Tell him we accept. It is time to show these aliens what humans can do when we stop holding back." The final battle would take place in Earth's orbit, where the war had begun. But this time, humanity would not be fighting for survival. They would be fighting to establish their place as the new apex predators in a galaxy that had underestimated them for the last time. The species that had once seemed primitive and divided had revealed itself to be something far more dangerous. They were natural-born warriors who had finally found an enemy worthy of their full attention. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were truly capable of when they stopped fighting each other and focused on a common foe. The final battle took place in Earth's orbit, where the war had begun 8 months earlier. Commander Zethkar made his last stand with the remnants of the once mighty Valorian fleet. His remaining ships formed a battle line that looked impressive, but could not hide the fact that most of his allies had already fled. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the human fleet from his flagship, the Terran Defiance. His ships were a mixture of human engineering and captured alien technology that had been improved beyond recognition. The vessels that surrounded him represented the transformation of an entire species, from prey to predator. "Open a channel to the alien commander," Morrison ordered his communications officer. Zethkar's image appeared on the main screen, his forearms crossed in what might have been resignation or defiance. The alien commander studied Morrison's face with something approaching respect. "Human Morrison," Zethkar said formally, "you have proven your species worthy of honorable combat. This final battle will determine which of us rules this region of space." Morrison nodded slightly. There was no hatred in his expression, no desire for revenge against the beings who had tried to destroy his people. There was something far more dangerous than anger. There was the calm confidence of a predator that had finally found its proper place in the natural order. "Commander Zethkar," Morrison replied, "your people fought well, but you made one critical mistake. You woke us up." The battle that followed was brief but decisive. Human ships moved with a coordination that seemed impossible for individual crews making independent decisions. They struck like a pack of wolves, each ship supporting the others in ways that created tactical opportunities faster than the aliens could respond. Zethkar watched his forces crumble before the human assault and finally understood what his intelligence officers had missed. These creatures did not just wage war. They were war. Fighting was not something they did. It was what they were. Human fighters swarmed through the alien formations like deadly insects. Human bombers appeared where they should not have been able to survive. Human capital ships traded fire with alien vessels and emerged victorious from exchanges that should have destroyed them. The alien commander found himself alone on his bridge as his ship's systems failed around him. His crew was dead or unconscious. His weapons were destroyed. His engines were offline. Yet somehow, he was still alive because the humans had chosen to let him live. Morrison's voice came through the communication system one final time. "Surrender, Commander. Your people can leave our space with honor." Zethkar looked at his tactical displays showing the complete destruction of his fleet. Not a single human ship had been lost in the final engagement. The primitives from Earth had achieved total victory against the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "We surrender," Zethkar announced, his 4 arms slumping in defeat. "Your species has proven superior in all aspects of warfare." The aftermath of the war transformed human civilization in ways that no one had expected. The scattered colonies united under a single government for the first time in human history. The technology captured and improved during the conflict launched humanity into a new age of expansion and exploration. Dr. Kate Sullivan, now heading the Department of Xenological Studies, published her final report on the conflict. Her conclusions were both simple and profound. Humanity had spent thousands of years fighting each other because they had no other worthy opponents. The alien invasion had finally given them a common enemy, and the results had been devastating for anyone foolish enough to challenge them. "We discovered something about ourselves during this war," Kate wrote in her report. "We are not a peaceful species that fights when necessary. We are a warrior species that practices peace when possible." Within 5 years, Human ships were exploring regions of space that had been considered too dangerous for any intelligent species to visit. Human colonies spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Human technology advanced at a rate that left other civilizations struggling to keep pace. The alien species that had once formed the Great Alliance now requested protection from the new power that had emerged from Earth. The Nexus Collective's remaining units calculated that cooperation with humans was their only logical path to survival. The Shard dynasty offered to share their knowledge in exchange for human protection from their enemies. Even the Valorians, once proud conquerors of 17 star systems, became willing allies of the species that had defeated them so completely. Zethkar himself served as an advisor to human military forces, teaching them about galactic politics and potential threats. General Frank Morris, in his memoirs about the war, wrote the words that became humanity's unofficial motto. We understood war because we had studied it, practiced it, and refined it for thousands of years. What we discovered is that we did not understand war. We were war. We just needed someone to remind us. The galaxy had a new apex predator, and it had learned its lessons well. Humanity spread among the stars not as conquerors seeking to dominate other species, but as the inheritors of a universe that had finally produced something worthy of their true nature. Admiral Lisa Grant, speaking at the dedication of the War Memorial on Luna, summarized the transformation that had taken place. They came to our worlds expecting to find sheep. Instead, they found wolves. They thought they were hunting prey. Instead, they became the prey. In the depths of space, other alien civilizations began to hear whispers about the species from Earth. Stories spread about the creatures who had taken the most powerful alliance in the galaxy and turned it into a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating one's enemy. Some species chose to make contact with humanity, offering friendship and trade. Others chose to avoid human space entirely, preferring not to risk awakening the sleeping giant that lived on the third planet from a small yellow star. But humanity was no longer sleeping. The war had awakened something that had been dormant for centuries. Earth's children walked among the stars with the confidence of beings who had proven themselves against the greatest military powers in the galaxy. The species that had once fought endless wars among themselves had finally found their true purpose. They were the guardians of the weak, the enemies of tyrants, and the living proof that evolution sometimes creates something perfect for its intended role. Humanity had been unleashed upon the galaxy, and the universe would never be the same. The age of human expansion had begun, and no force in creation was strong enough to stop it.